give a minute to see if some of you can get in here and watch me do this live. So what we have here today is the Segola X-Tech 100, and this is a really fine detail airbrush, and this is kind of one I've been using behind the scenes here for actual work on customer stuff. And I've used it for a couple jobs now. Has a little bit of paint in there, dried up or whatever, and we're gonna go ahead and, we're gonna clean it. So I'm gonna run through you guys what I kind of go through cleaning one of these, and give you guys my tips or whatever if you want us. But there's gonna be a couple things you're gonna need. You're gonna need some paper towels. I have these shop towels. What's up, Belon 209? So I have these shop towels here, and those work good. You need some pipe cleaners, and these you can find them even at the dollar store, and you get a pack of like 100 for $1 or whatever. Go get yourself a pack of those, and you are gonna need some, like a little bit of a bowl with a little bit of water and a little bit of soap. And I recommend you get some like industrial soap, even some Purple Power, some Mean Green or something like that. It'll work better than dish soap, but if you don't have anything else, like dish soap will work, even laundry detergent will work. So get yourself a bowl of water, put a little bit of soap in it, and then you're gonna need something, probably a pair of pliers. Is the most universal tool. But if you have something like this airbrush, we won't really need a tool. But in your airbrush case, it might be different. So we're gonna start by taking it apart and just taking all this stuff off. Again, you got to be careful with the needle, especially on an airbrush like this. It has a really fine needle. You just want to be careful not to bend that, nub it, stub it on something, and just be really careful. And of course this one has a nozzle that's one of the smaller kind, but it's no different. Some have bigger nozzles, some have littler ones. If you have an airbrush that has one of these over here, obviously this whole front part comes off. It does on this as well, but I don't think we're gonna have to take it off here. But go ahead and take that off. Take your cone off here at the very end, and I want to get that needle out of there before I do that. Be very careful again with the needle. You don't want to bend it. You don't want to do anything crazy, but as you can tell, it has like some black marks on it. Those are the dirty spots on the needle, and that actually will make a difference on how smooth and stuff your trigger is, and as well as how good the paint comes out. Sometimes your paint will get stuck on that. You could take this all apart right now. What's up, Mr. Excess Score? And just take it all apart, take your trigger out of there and stuff, and that way you get a nice good hold on this. Make sure you get that nozzle just right. There, got it loose. Or not. Again, I'll be really careful with these. And this one is so small, it's actually kind of hard to get off of there. But once it's off, just be careful. And you can see that's why it's dirty. There has a little bit of dry paint sitting right in the nozzle right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. Trying to get it to focus. Well, I don't know, but there's a little bit of paint in there in the nozzle. You could see it, so that's kind of why I'm cleaning it. And again, any little particle of paint or anything like that will really affect your airbrush. Now again, this front part does come off. But like I explained in my Spanish video, a lot of this stuff, like the pneumatic stuff, like here where the airbrush goes in, you could take this off and stuff, but I don't ever, in like my whole, 10 plus years of airbrushing or whatever, I've never actually seen a need to take this off unless you actually like leave your airbrush submerged in paint, or if you get so much backflow into the airlines that it clogs them up or something. But most of the time the air flows one way. You know, you might want to drop a little bit of pneumatic oil in there just to keep that lubed up, you know, something like that. But I don't really see a need to take that off or do anything crazy with that. All we're really going to do is clean the inside of this, of all the areas where the paint flows through, as well as all our other pieces to make sure everything is actually moving without any friction, and that way it makes it nice and smooth for when you go and try to pull the trigger. It's nice and easy and smooth and not, you know, hard or has, you know, hiccups in it or anything like that. So I'm gonna start I guess with something like this. We could start with the main body. This back piece here, we'll just take a piece of our pipe cleaner and we're gonna just dip it in our little bit of soap here. We're just going to run our pipe cleaner through there. You know, again, if yours is like super dirty or something, you might want to let it sit in the soapy water for, you know, maybe a day. I mean, not a day, like for a few hours, 4 to 8 hours or something like that. Then you really want to take it out. You want to clean it, and then you want to run air through it right away. Make sure you get all the moisture out of the air lines and stuff. Make sure you don't get no moisture trapped anywhere where it's not supposed to be. So again, you want to make sure you kind of use this, you know, just whirl it around. And I prefer these over Q-tips just because the wire part in there seems to hold up a little better, and the felt stuff doesn't come off as easy as the Q-tip stuff. I don't know, just a preference. But that's pretty clean in there. You can kind of see, you know, blow it out a little bit, give yourself a good view in there. And make sure every time you move to another part. What's up, Michael? No problem. Thank you for watching my videos. We're going to clean the inside of there. And again, if you use a different kind of paint, soap and water like this, like industrial soap and water, will work really good. Warm water or hot water works better too on Createx paint, you know, or an acrylic type paint. It'll work really good on stuff like that. If you use like a polyurethane paint, automotive paint through your airbrush, obviously you're not going to be able to use soap and water. You'll probably have to use like paint thinner or something, and honestly your results might vary. That's the reason a lot of us don't actually run automotive paint through these airbrushes. We'll use Createx and stuff like that because it's a lot easier to clean. So, I don't know whose dog is barking. I thought it was my dog, but it's not. But yeah, you want to take your pipe cleaner and run it through that front hole there. Make sure it's all nice and clean. And if you can't get your pipe cleaner through there, you might want to run your needle through there. Make sure you get it nice and wet. And you know, just make sure your needle will flow through there nice and easy. Make sure there is no crud or paint stuck around it. You know, make sure it's just nice and clean. Again, any little piece of paint and stuff stuck around this area will give you lots of problems if you're not careful. So just make sure your needle goes through there nice and easy. Make sure it comes out nice and clean. You know, try to get as much as you can. And you could probably see through there. I just looked through down the barrel, and you could see all the way through, so that's nice and clean. And you know, you want to make sure all your parts nice and clean. Take your spring off. You want to be careful with your spring. You just want to take a piece of paper towel and just dip it in the water a little bit. You know, just dip a corner in. And you just want to roll your spring around in here. You don't want to stretch it. You don't want to run anything through it or anything, but just, you know, take it and give it a few spins around with it on your napkin, rubbing it on there. And for the most part, these will come clean pretty easy. Unlike this airbrush, it's pretty quality, so even the spring is like chrome coated, so everything just like kind of slides off of it really nice and easy. You know, again, depending on what airbrush you have, your results may vary. Again, this piece right here where the spring sits on, you want to make sure it's nice and clean on the outside, obviously. But again, you want to take your needle, dip it in the water, make sure there's nice and wet, and just run it back and forth through there. Make sure there's nothing stopping the needle from getting through, you know, and make sure it's nice and clean. You also want to clean the needle, so if you can see those black spots, you know, we're going to go ahead and take our paper towel and just gently, you know, run the needle back and forth. This is not a race. You're not trying to see how hard you can rub it. You just need to do it gently. Let the soap do its work, and you'll see those start to come off. You know, and then for the tip, you could try to give the needle a spin, something like that, and you can see we're got most of those off already. And you want to be careful not to stab yourself with this. This thing will be super sharp, so you want to be really careful not to stab yourself with one of these. So you see now it's nice and clean. There's no black spots anymore on this. And be careful not to bend it. Don't bend your fingers while you're working on it or anything. Always kind of handle it gently, and you know, just be really careful with your needle, because a bend in your needle will affect performance of your airbrush a lot, so be careful. Okay, and then so you want to just make sure all your other parts are clean. Make sure your trigger's clean. Make sure your the part where your spring sits in, make sure it's nice and clean. Sometimes you'll have blowback from paint and stuff, and you know, that's not good. So just take a pipe cleaner, run it through there. Make sure it's nice and clean. So, and then, you know, on your body, make sure you want to clean all the outside. Make sure it's nice and, you know, you can just scrub it down with your paper towel. Again, you don't have to be super forceful. Let the soap do its work. Everything is, you know, chrome plated and stuff, so everything should just come off. It's not really going to stick on the chrome. You know, it's not going to stick on the chrome. If you use a good soap, it should just come off right away like that. And this one had a whole bunch of overspray on it from also sitting on the table where I was working. As you can see, it's super shiny now. So that's pretty much that. Clean the handle off. This handle's not really that dirty, but you never know until you wipe it, and then you're like, ooh, that was dirtier than I thought. So just make sure you get it all clean, you know. It doesn't hurt to wipe it down. And then your nozzle. Again, with a nozzle like this, you want to be super careful. So we're going to use our pliers to hold it down. If I could just get it on the tip of my fingers. We're going to grab it from the flat spots on the nozzle gently. Hold it there. I'm going to take, you could take a toothpick usually, you know, on your nozzle, especially if you have a bigger nozzle or something like that. But I'll just use the needle on this one. There's just a little piece of paint stuck on there. So you want to make sure you get everything out of there. You know, make sure there's nothing stuck on the walls of the nozzle. and make sure your needle can just go right in and out. Okay, and then just use a pipe cleaner, or you can use the paper towel, I guess, since it doesn't really want to stay in place. So just make sure you get everything off of it. Again, any little bit of paint in the wrong place will cause you a lot of problems in the long run. So make sure you get this all off nice and clean. And we can start putting it back together, and we'll actually start with the nozzle. And you want to hand start this first. Make sure you got it right. I hate these little ones, sometimes they're really tricky. And if I would have known, I would have got my monocle out so I could see. But I think I could get it. Alright. Okay, then make sure your thread is actually good, because on these sometimes the thread be so fine and you think you got it on there right, and then you'll mess up the threads on your nozzle. So you gotta be careful, and you just want to get that on there nice and tight. You know, don't over tighten it, just where it sits firm, and you'll be good. And again, you want to just put your front cap on, and hand tighten on this is pretty easy. You want to put your front tip on because this has a delicate nozzle, so we will put that on. We will put our trigger on, and on the Segola, unlike these Segola airbrushes, there's a nice guide. You see these triggers have guides at the very bottom of them over here, and they fit into the guides inside the airbrush. So it makes it really easy to set those in place. Generally, like these airbrushes, just in general, they're designed in such a way that I get kind of giddy over them. Other ones I have such a hard time putting them back together. But again, you just put your stuff back in there. Make sure these are sitting in the guides. And make sure your actuator, this half moon thing, make sure the curved part is facing outward towards the back part of the airbrush. You don't want it sitting the other way. Your airbrush will not work right. And sometimes getting that piece in there is just a pain in general. I think Iwatas have them attached to the other piece, but you know, sometimes it just takes a little luck. So we'll put our final pieces back together. Put your spring in there, put your actuator into the spring, and again, these have a guide on there, so the guide goes facing down, and you know, it all screws in really nicely. Again, just a hand tighten on this, it'll sit. They have an end point on there, so you can't over tighten them or anything like that. A hand tighten is about all you need. Make sure your action moves without the air. It should be able to come up and down without the air, as you can see there. If it would focus, you can push it down and it comes right back up. That's how you know your pneumatic area is clean and your valve up at the top there was clean. If it's dirty, you will have problems with your trigger there, and you'll need to actually clean that area a little deeper. So then you just want to put in your needle, and again, you don't want to force the needle in, you just want to gently push it, and where it sits, it'll sit, and that's it. You know, you'll see it out at the front, and that's it. You don't need to jam it in there, you don't need to be super forceful. Just lightly and gently, you know, tighten that down. And again, this, you want to give it a good hand tighten. I've seen people try to take you know, pliers to this and stuff like that, but it really it's only going to get so tight. And then after that, if you have problems with this not holding the needle, it's usually because your needle's dirty or something is holding it somewhere else. There should be no reason for your needle not to move freely after you've put it all together. You know, test it out, make sure this goes up and down. Your action should be nice and smooth. And if you wanted, you could use a little bit of coconut oil on this stuff, you know, before you put it back together. And that's just to avoid rust. It keeps stuff moving nice and smooth. But it also promotes dust and stuff in there. So I just rather clean the airbrush out every, you know, I've done like 2 paintings with this, and probably that's the rate I'll keep doing that. It is every 2 paintings, and give it a good tear down and clear out and cleaning. So there you go. There's the Segola X-Tech 100, nice and clean, ready for its next job. And again, if you have any other questions about a certain airbrush, you know, again, I don't have every airbrush, but I'm probably able to look up most airbrushes out there. So if you have a question about a certain one, drop it in the comments, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. If you like the video, make sure you give it a like, thumbs up. If you dislike for any reason, give it a thumbs down. It helps me out either way. If you like my videos and want to see more videos like this about airbrushing and just other shop stuff in general, you know, give me a subscribe. And if you want to help me out, if you think these videos are useful, make sure you share them out in your Facebook groups or amongst your friends or other artist enthusiasts. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.